Get that pull up.
All right, welcome everybody to the regular monthly trustees meeting. Debbie, you want to call us to order?
Yeah.
Here.
Here.
All right. And Pete, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pete?
Uh-huh.
All right. So everybody's microphones on. All right. Approval of minutes.
I request a motion to pay the work session meeting minutes of November 9th, the regular meeting minutes of November the 9th, and the special meeting minutes of November the 29th.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Missed me. All right, so public presentation and actions. Alan, would you
Yep.
like to?
No, I just wanted to give everybody an update on the meeting, the workshop that we had about Green Road. There were probably about 6 or 7 people that were there from the Green Road and the subdivision behind it. And we also had the engineers from Kleinger's. We had the engineer from the county. Am I missing it? And also we had the fire chief, and we had the police chief, and we had John Kohler. And all of us sat down and we talked about, had some maps out in front of us. We talked about some different options, different issues that we could look at to try to help resolve some of the problems. Nothing was perfect. We talked about speed bumps, speed humps, speed tables, chicanes, walking trails. Am I missing anything? Walking trails, sidewalks. And so all of those issues we went through. That report will come back to your group. And it'll be shared January at your meeting. After that is over with, once you guys have an opportunity to kind of hash through all that, someone's supposed to get back to Tim, and we'll reschedule a follow-up meeting. And we'll continue to meet as many times as we need to continue to refine. At the last minute, there was an interesting suggestion from John Kohler to, what did you call it? Mill in some lines into the streets. It creates a sound, but the sound is more internal because it's a micro abrasion. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, basically skim the top of the blacktop, make it a little rougher in spots. It's not gonna be as abrasive as like rumble strips, but it will change tones when you're driving over it to make somebody maybe pay attention a little bit more.
So I was driving to Columbus the other day, and you wondered, what the heck does this have to do with Green Road or any of the subdivision issues? And I was driving along and it was raining, and ODOT had done some work on 71. So as I was driving along, all of a sudden I was listening to the radio, and my car was making a strange noise. And I thought, oh crap, this is not a good day to break down. So I turned the radio down and I was listening. It was actually, the work they had done on the road was starting to vibrate back up into my car. And so it did lead me to wonder, if you put those abrasions in the road in the right way, in the right depth, could we make music out of that?
Possible.
We could have singing roads. No, I figured that was an option, but no.
I noticed that last Wednesday, now that you mention it. Okay. And it was a finished surface, as I recall.
Yeah.
So it looked good, and it was the completed project. And now that you mentioned it, I did
There's like
feel that. Yeah, it was a
ringing.
vibration.
Yeah, it's a ringing inside my
Yep.
car.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's essentially the recap. I think, is there anything I've missed or left out?
I think that's everything.
Okay. From you guys? Okay. So that's where we are.
As a resident of Green Road, it'd be nice to be invited to the meeting, obviously, so.
We were not, I'm going to stop you right there. We were not in charge of inviting people from the neighborhood.
Okay,
Your group did that.
it's not my group work. Shouldn't you as trustees, shouldn't you, if somebody's gonna have it on a Green Road, shouldn't you at least let the residents know that there's discussion?
We did. And she's raised her hand back there.
talked to you about it earlier, and I take full responsibility for not including Randy, and the reason I did this is just to explain to him. It runs a line earlier in the fall, Randy, he said that he was done with it. Number two, he said that he and Chris were moving. Number three, there was a discussion of possibly getting a lawyer involved, and we don't want to get a lawyer involved in what's going on with the situation. So that's why I did include you.
Yeah.
Take full responsibility for that.
No, it just, but legally,
But you knew that before the meeting?
no, I just found it out today.
No, but did you tell Randy that before we came to this meeting?
Yes. Earlier this year.
Yeah, earlier this afternoon, right,
So then why did you just blame us for leaving you out?
because we're part of Green Road, and if discussions going on Green Road, the township should involve people in Green Road. We had other people that want to show up for this meeting.
After you heard what she just said?
Yes, correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Keep in mind now, the last time I was up here, keep in mind, I was pushed over for an hour and a half. Okay, we were on the agenda there in September to be talked. Con Run was up here for an hour and a half. I sat back here as old business. We were on the list ahead of them. And I sat back here for an hour and a half, like Con Run had the form. And then went to other things. We never even got to discuss it. I was pushed off the agenda. Green Road was even brought up in the hour and a half I was sitting up here. So you can understand my concern when we get passed over. We're on the list like we are today, first or second. We got passed over for an hour and a half. Yes, there's a big contingency from Pond Run. I agree. But then other things going on with promotions, and that's great, but we got pushed down the list.
Well, so
That was probably my fault. I can be a little unconventional with the order.
But I mean, I was here for an hour and a half. That's why I said I'm done. I was here from 6:30 to 8 just to get an update, and that was it. Because there wasn't much to talk about.
just so you know,
Yeah.
we understand that, and actually our chairman changed it around so that, the public comment can go first going forward, so that actually is an improvement. So we recognize that, there might have been a little bit of a delay.
Right.
But we take that feedback seriously, and he's changed that, so.
Right, and that's like I said, because
In a good
Amy came to the meetings afterwards. I didn't come to the last meeting in November, and I told her I'd be up for this one because they're talking about striping lines, and my exact comment to Amy was, why are they talking about striping lines? Shouldn't they involve the residents at Green Road before you start doing stuff to Green Road? And because
That's exactly what we did. That was
Right.
exactly the
Okay.
conclusion we came to as well.
right,
And that's why we held a workshop. So
that's
that-
fine. And if I would have known about it, people who would have been from Green Road would have shown up.
then I recommend that you
And that's
go
okay.
to that
It was
next
just a
meeting that
rhetorical
they
question.
have.
Right, that's fine. It was a rhetorical
That
question.
wasn't a rhetorical question because you pointed it at us and expected an answer. So
Well-
that's not a rhetorical question.
Okay.
That is an attack on us.
Well, Alan, if you're on my side for 4 years, I've been in front of you for 4.5 years on these exact same issues. In fact, I still don't have an answer on the number of emergency vehicles go down the road every day, the number of tickets been written. I've asked for 4.5 years for public information I can't get. So from my side of it, you can understand a cause is what are we hiding? Why can't we get the information that we've asked for 4.5 years? I mean, it's been in writing. I've sent it to you several times. I know you want to discuss it, but I'm just saying, these are legitimate concerns.
We held a workshop. We
Okay.
went through those legitimate concerns with residents in the area.
With
at the
residents of the
request.
subdivision, right?
We asked the residents
Yep.
to tell us, we assume that you're the spokesperson at this point. And we went and asked,
But it shouldn't be
Bring
on the
whoever you want.
spokesperson, shouldn't it be on the township? I mean, the township is going to do something to a road. Shouldn't you want to let the residents of the road know, not the workshop? I'm just saying,
no, that's what we did, sir.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
move forward.
okay, fair enough. And who should we address to get our questions answered for 4.5 years? Who do we address them to get them answered? Because you haven't answered any of them in 4.5 years. So who should this information go to?
How many, is there a way to tell him exactly how many emergency vehicles roll down his street every year?
No, I mean, we can tell how many runs we've made, but not runs that we've gone.
All right, I mean, I'm just gonna talk a little bit from a high level perspective here. And we are honestly trying to do the best we can to come up with a solution that's
Right.
viable for us as a township from a monetary and from a fairness perspective.
Right.
And Alan really went above and beyond to try to reach out to, which is usually the best way to do it, a representative from the community, because they usually have better contacts than we do. I mean, we have Circle and a couple other things that we have maybe some emails from people, but usually if you have somebody within that group that can communicate with people, it's a much more effective way to do it, in which he did. And, he spent time to come up here and meet with folks and get their feedback. And I feel like we're really moving toward a possible good solution that might be good for everybody as far as the traffic goes. So I really would like to stay focused on,
Okay.
as far as first principles go, like what's the problem? And how are we going to solve it? And I also understand your frustration because you've been here for a while, you've voiced this issue, and nothing has gotten done. But I do feel like the meeting that Alan had with the residents was really a meaningful step forward to actually making some rubber meet the road, no pun intended,
Yeah.
and getting something actually done here.
Yeah.
So, I just want to make sure we don't derail this thing. We
No,
don't get
right.
adversarial. We don't
Right.
move off
No, the
off
thing
into
is-
the peripheral
is-
areas that
With the
aren't
traffic
productive.
study, we've heard one thing out of your mouth and you see something else being done. That traffic study was supposed to be for 3 days, 2 weekdays and a weekend. It was also supposed to be on Green Road and the road leaving Green Road to Nordic. The traffic study was done for 1 day, just on Green Road. So we hear, every time we're up here, we hear things and there's a cost thing. But the last thing we left the board meeting, there's supposed to be a traffic study supposed to be for multiple days, 1 weekend day and one or 2 weekdays on both roads. We only had a traffic study done on Green Road for 1 day.
I understand that, but if you're going to look for that gotcha moment where this one technicality you guys didn't do and you guys,
Nick,
that's not
Yeah.
productive. That's not a
But
productive.
This,
way to
this
handle
conversation is not.
so at the end of the day, where do these questions go to so we can get them
We
answered?
just answered one of your questions. He can't answer it.
Fair enough.
That's the answer.
Because-
What's your next question?
That's it. We'll send it. Okay.
All right, we really
That
do
was
want to work
tremendously not
toward
productive.
honestly, guys, we're trying our best here. So do you guys have anything you want to add? Or if you don't, that's okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially that's where things stand. It's back in your court. We'll have as many meetings as you think you need, or, that we, in order to get to some sort of a conclusion. But it was a very good give and take between the folks that were there. And so, just let us know when you want to have the second one and make sure.
Then, of course, he kind of sent a synopsis, and it matched everything that Tim had sent. And I just want to reiterate again, I take responsibility
That's okay.
for not including Randy. I just felt like he was not, the words I was hearing is that he wasn't interested in going forward with it anymore. And so that's why I didn't do it. I want to make sure that everybody knows it was me.
So I think that we look at it this way, bygones will be bygones and we're only moving forward. So all that stuff in the past, all that negative energy, I'm not pointing the finger at you, sir, by any stretch, but just around the general concept. I say we let it go. We've got some great ideas on the table, really good ideas. Mr. Freeman's done a lot of work on this and the others have too. So let all that stuff go. We're moving forward and I think you'll all be satisfied. We'll come to a fiscally responsible and satisfactory solution for the neighborhood.
Hopefully.
Okay.
With that, go ahead. Sorry. Come
I
on.
was just gonna say for this part, and then head out before all that.
Okay. Yeah.
You're welcome to leave whatever you'd like.
Merry Christmas.
You never know with these meetings.
You all take care.
All right, guys. So, nominations for the Board of Trustee Chairman. You mean I don't get to do this anymore?
No,
You can.
I am crushed.
we decided it was time for you to go.
So typically we do rotate chair year to year.
We're actually going to blame you for why the entire community wasn't invited. So that's why you're out.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We do typically rotate chair year to year, so. Do I have any suggestions on nominations for?
I think Debbie should do it. I'm going to nominate.
Well, I think the.
I don't think we can.
Can we second that?
Ohio Revised.
No,
Something in the law about that.
I'll nominate Pete.
Okay. I will second that nomination.
But just know, Pete, it's not for tonight. You don't get it tonight. This is his last hurrah. We're going to have a parade around the room for his last go round. But it is for the first meeting in January.
We could postpone it conceivably by another modified motion if you would like, but if you want to stay in the position that is.
Oh, it's typically it'll be January.
I know I'm joking,
And I
but if you
and I
really
want a
want it,
parade
we
and I
can.
want a statue as well.
Okay, we'll work that out.
Statue.
Is that fiscally responsible?
We've only traditionally done a bust, and that's it. No full statue.
Well, congrats, Pete.
Thank you.
we gotta have to do a roll call.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Always
let's
right.
do a roll call.
All right, so
So I haven't got all.
Yeah, it's,
So let me
you're not
say,
there yet.
just say, well, let me say something in the event that I am voted in that role. I promise to do my best to perform in that way as you've done. You have a great job. Alan has done a great job before that. I'm humbled and I'm honored, and I will put forth my best effort. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
But we haven't voted yet, dude.
Okay.
This is
Just prefacing the vote,
this is really-
trying to grease the skid.
After that speech, I might change my mind.
All right, so I have a,
This way?
we do have a motion in a second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes,
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And Mr. Campbell.
Yes, thank you.
there would be irony if you just said no.
That was very, that was very Pierce Township-esque.
Thank you,
All right.
guys.
Now we need a vice chair.
Need a vice chair. I nominate Nick Kelly.
Second,
Thank you, guys.
Roll call. We won't put him through the crowd.
Mr. Freeman,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Very good. Moving on, departmental updates. Chief Broxman.
Yes, sir. As you know, we had a homicide on November 28th on State Route 749. I just wanted to publicly recognize Chief Wright and Service Director Kohler. A few nights after the homicide, it was determined by the prosecutor's office that a Connex trailer that was on the property needed to be towed from the property to another location. Chief Wright and John Kohler stuck around for a long time after their normal shift to ensure that the trailer was properly transported, and they really went above and beyond their normal duties. So hats off to them. We had our Toys for Tots event at Kroger's on December 10th. We partnered with Kroger's at that event. We collected 200 toys and $400 cash for the less fortunate. And finally, the search for Thomas Mills continues. He went missing on December 8th. Ohio Landsar, which is a search and rescue effort, they have 30 plus members, and they've been nonstop in assisting us with the search of the area since the event happened. And, at some point, I'd like to invite the representatives from that group to a trustee meeting to publicly recognize their efforts. But again, the search for Mr. Mills goes on. We follow up on all leads, as well as tracking down video footage and conducting further searches. So at this point, we keep our hopes up, but as each day passes, it doesn't look good at this point. And that's all I have. Oh, and then Officer Dorman, we have a event where we recognize citizens for doing good things in the community. And in this case, this gentleman's vehicle rolled backwards and hit another vehicle. He stuck around to make sure that information was exchanged, and he was recognized by Officer Dorman for his efforts with a gift card to Walmart.
It's a golden ticket, right?
Yes, a golden ticket program that was instituted by previous Police Chief Bachman. And then this lady, Tracy Hamilton, assisted a motorist on US 52. And again, our newest officer, Officer Chesney, recognized her for her efforts for going above and beyond to help a stranded motorist. And I believe that's all I have.
Great.
Chief, one quick question. Last year at the ice cream social, we passed out those kits, identification kits. When we have events like the Toys for Tots, for instance, is it part of that? Do we include maybe passing that out when we do those events, and if not, maybe can we do that?
Sure, we did not at this event, but we can certainly do that in upcoming public events that we have.
Great.
We'll make sure we have an adequate supply on hand and give those out.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Chief Wright?
And I think the kind of segue from Chief Brocksterman, about this time last year, we received an $8,000 donation that was unsolicited from a gentleman who lives in New York, still owns some property in Pierce. We used some of that money to buy a skid unit for the UTV project. And one of the other things that we opted to get was a sonar unit for the boat. Since we had a couple of incidents this summer where we needed it and didn't have it, and we thought it would make a difference. So we bought that sonar unit. Our plan was to train on it over the winter inside, and then the spring get it out on the boat. So when Mr. Mills came up missing, we were able to, it was set for our bigger boat. We had to kind of Frankenstein it to get on the Little John boat, which our staff did an amazing job, finding parts in the station to get it to work. So I think we logged probably 16, 18 hours searching ponds in the area using that tremendous piece of equipment that we wouldn't have had if it wouldn't have been for some support from residents. So
I will just add a little bit when you mentioned that the crime scene, container that was hauled off and things like that, and then the sonar, and that's been one of my biggest pleasures as a trustee, is to be part of kind of the camaraderie here in Pierce Township between department heads and between departments, and the willingness to help each other out and kind of chip in, particularly when times are, when you need somebody else. Just I from what I've heard, and I have no other experience, that's not always the case, and it's just been really nice to see that. I think there's a huge benefit to it, and I appreciate that with everybody. So I'd state that for the record.
thank you.
Chief, that donor that provided that sum of money, might be a nice idea to write him a note saying that, your donation helped facilitate, the use of this, device during this manhunt for this missing autistic gentleman. I think he would appreciate that. It hit home for him.
Absolutely. And that's kind of why we opted to buy some equipment that we wouldn't have ordinarily purchased or had the money to purchase. That way it gives a benefit to the whole community, and it's kind of something that'll live on. So I'm happy to send something to him and let him know. So Assistant Chief Watkins is here tonight. He graduated from the Ohio Fire Executive Program last month. So we went to Columbus for his graduation. Mr. Kelly went with us. We didn't purposely exclude all of you, but he only had so many spots available. So the Ohio Fire Executive Program, Jim was in for about 2.5 years. So he started prior to coming here. We supported him to finish. It's through the Ohio Fire Chiefs and the Ohio Fire and Emergency Services Foundation. So a 2.5-year program, around 200 hours of class time, 8 assigned papers, numerous chapters or whole books assigned from 16 different sources, 50 or more articles. He had to deliver 2 25-minute presentations using PowerPoint, 3 impromptu speeches. He had to do an applied research project and submit a final paper for the topic he picked. This one was a bit of a challenge for him, doing a prepared and submitted organizational evaluation of his home department. So he switched departments and kind of halfway through, which was a bit of a challenge. And over 400 hours out of class time. It was a program where he went to Columbus, for a week at a time, at several different intervals to get this done. So incredibly proud of him for accomplishing it. I think it was the 20th class. And I think during his class, you had 450th person that had graduated. So not a lot of people in Ohio that have done it. So definitely something very commendable that he achieved. So I just wanted to recognize him.
I will also say that the 450, as I learned, is like a lot of people also apply for that.
Yes.
So it's really an elite group out of
is.
the amount of people that start and apply, actually how many people graduate.
Yes. And I think, he learned a lot of valuable things that'll be a huge asset for us moving forward.
And it's kind of like the master's, and as you stated, right?
Yes.
Master's degree in firefighting.
Mhm.
It's probably even more elite, I think. Much more difficult. So thank you, Jim. A lot of work. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Chief.
And the last piece I have, so there's a local nonprofit called Back the Heroes Rumble. The gentleman that runs it lives in Union Township. So they do some fundraising events to support police, fire, and military. Mr. Whalen reached out to me a few months ago. So one of the projects that in the past, they donated tourniquets and some stop the bleed type kits to our police department. So now he's kind of shifted focus to us. He wants to buy particulate filtering hoods for all of our firefighters. So he wants to buy 2 for each firefighter to the tune of about $10,000. So he's kind of launched this endeavor to raise those funds to assist us. And one of the first things he partnered with was DJ Hospitality Group, which owns Freddy's. So he did a roundup at the cash register, and I think it was $2,800 to kind of kick off his fundraising for this project. So I was able to go meet with the chief financial officer from DJ Hospitality and Mr. Whalen as they presented him with the money, and he's going to continue to raise funds until he has enough to donate the equipment that he wanted to for us.
That's great.
Impressive.
Yes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sheriff's Director Kohler.
Can't remember if I had anything or not. I don't think I really had much this month. It was kind of a slow month with the weather and stuff. We worked on just numerous different things, trying to wrap things up for the winter or before winter. So,
All right. Short and sweet. I like it.
yep.
Parks and Green Space Committee. Do we have any? Doug.
So, yeah, just an update. We had our fall cleanup day on November the 19th, and it was a very chilly morning. We had 17 volunteers come out, good contingent from the University of Cincinnati, as well as Boy Scouts and Township residents that worked over at the nature park, just clearing some invasives, and then had some folks rounding up some pine cones for the Christmas tree event, which is coming up, and just a reminder of that. That's tomorrow evening from 7 to 8. Volunteers are arriving at 6:30 tomorrow. Thanks to John and the service department for getting the tree ready. So again, it should be a fun event for the community. It's second annual. And in the committee meeting last week, we do these cleanup days twice a year, in the fall and the spring. We usually target the spring to be ahead of the Easter egg hunt event. And so one thing that we discussed and discuss further after the first of the year is potentially rotating between Locust Corner Park here and Spencer Shank for the Easter egg hunt. It's just, since we've gotten the, more parks expanded, our population base, with Amelia is trying to incorporate that event in a different park. So just putting that out there, to the trustees and department heads too, that's something we're thinking about. We think that it's a big park. I mean, there is, street parking, it's, but think about that. If anybody has any concerns with that, let us know. But we think it would be a good thing for the community.
That's a great idea, Doug. There are a lot of children over that way, and it is, as you said, a big park. So I think it's a fantastic idea.
So I think, so we would look at, our spring work days going over at Spencer Shank and kind of evaluating what maybe to be cleaned up for the winter and that type of thing. So,
Doug, just to let you know, your cleanup group from last year made it to the 223 Otarma calendar. So
Okay.
I've got one in there for you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's posted
You're
in
famous.
for the month of October.
Okay.
So, and Pete's front and
I'm the
center.
centerfold.
I don't know what to think about that.
That's pretty scary. I guess.
Do we need to reconsider?
Yeah.
We need to reconsider our. vote?
Rescind that vote.
Yeah.
That's the coldest work day we've had.
It was cold.
No, go ahead. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Even better.
Debbie's going to run and present you with
Yeah, okay.
the centerfold.
Formally.
But that's all I had. Any questions?
Anything else? Yeah.
Anything, Michelle, on this or?
Well, but we are moving forward on Grow Park and
Yes.
next door.
Right,
So
and
you
you know,
might wanna
obviously
drill down.
there's progress being made, you know, with the demolition so far.
Right.
And
And
so,
the
yeah,
Christmas parade was great. Michelle, thank you. Did a lot
As
of work on
always,
this.
I hear.
Thank you very much.
I said it was great, as always, I hear, but as you recall, I was at a funeral, a wedding for my nephew, so I had to be there.
But for years in the future, there was a very wise gentleman who's in this room somewhere who made the suggestion that maybe in the future that the trustees, fiscal officer of both respective townships participate in the parade. I think that was a very good idea. So perhaps that would be something to consider in the future. And you brought up the point of whether or not that could consider a meeting, and if so, a quorum, you know, we could convene a special meeting. No, we don't want that, but we could conceivably convene a special meeting for that purpose, I would assume.
In what way? I mean, because in the past, I've been in the parade. I participated, you've participated, right? Were you not there this year?
That was.
I don't, just look,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
it sounds interesting, but I'd like
Michelle
to know.
brought that up. I thought maybe we do need to have a,
Yeah, I mean,
you know, I don't know.
I just was curious what that would look like. That's all.
All
Wouldn't
eight
look
of us.
good, I can tell you that. The three of us on it.
As they say,
Less visible is better.
there'd be a whole lot of ugly. Speak for
Well, it's
myself.
an interesting, yeah, we'll explore it. I mean, you know, I typically just hop in with someone, but. Okay.
I really wish that New Richmond played West Claremont or Batavia. I think they do play Batavia. So maybe we can get some friendly rivalries going on a lot of different levels between Batavia and Pierce.
Or it could be a sign
It's a
of
great
unity,
idea,
you know,
Alan. I
between
think that'll
Batavia
end
and
very
Pierce.
That'll end very well. Sorry, I'll keep that to myself.
All right. So. Planning and zoning. On run. So the main thing that I've got two items. One is regarding nuisance actions at 2825 Pond Run, as well as 962 East Legendary Run. So at your last meeting, you requested that further research on enforcement action be performed regarding Pond Run. And as it pertains to Legendary, you suggest or made a motion that we proceed with legal action. So I'll defer to Attorney Barbier on the specifics regarding those two actions. I don't want to speak out of turn. So just to be sure, I kind of want to get these two things away from each other, be honest with you. They're two completely different situations, two completely different instances. When you're looking at a nuisance, two completely different contributing factors. So if we could just speak of them individually.
Sure. Well, with respect to 962 East Legendary Run, a complaint was actually filed in the Claremont County Board of Common Pleas. That's a public record. That was filed today. That will probably be a record with the court. If not today, then tomorrow. I don't want to speak too much about that now that it's pending litigation, but it is pending litigation and it's a nuisance action that we have initiated against the property owner seeking a cleanup of the property. Unless there's any questions on that, that would probably be the most I'm going to say about Legendary Run. With respect to 2825 Pond Run Road, we were kind of in the initial, where we were with Legendary Run last time. We're there now with Pond Run, which is that property owner constructed a premises on its property without a zoning permit. We were looking into the possibility of pursuing an action against the property on that basis, the construction of a structure without a permit. We are able to do so, and as I, talked to Mr. McCarthy about that, we are able to do so. We can proceed civilly or criminally against the property owner on that basis under the Pierce Township zoning resolution. So the option there now is just whether we want to move forward with that.
In which path? I mean, as far as you said criminal.
You can proceed criminally against the property owner under 51999, which is the criminal enforcement of your zoning resolution. or you can proceed civilly against the property owner under 51923, which is just a separate avenue under your zoning resolution for enforcing it. Typically, these go more quickly and a little smoother if they're proceeded criminally. It's a faster process. You get to the hearing faster. You don't go through the rigorous discovery and other process that you would with a civil action, but it's you know, something of a six of one, half dozen of another with respect to whether you want to proceed criminally or civilly. And it's also kind of your zoning resolution allows for both, but it's also kind of how you would enact the resolution to move forward with this would authorize you to go either direction.
Could we go both directions or start with one? Okay, okay.
Now, the one, if we went criminally, you can't, I understand you can't turn it into civil. But you could, the penalties could wind up being adjudicated as being civil.
Right, and your penalties authorized under your zoning resolution are, you know, daily compounding penalties. So, I mean, there is it's pretty severe penalty associated with such, and that is authorized under, if you proceed criminally or proceed civilly, those are available to you under both avenues.
But it feels as though criminally could be more flexible in perhaps getting to a better conclusion.
Yeah, and you know, I'll tell you,
It sounds worse.
at least in Hamilton County, because they have the housing court docket, criminally, it's just a much faster way to do it. Claremont County might be a little different. I don't think they have the housing court docket that Hamilton County runs, but I still think it would probably be a faster option.
And as you suggested, the fines are potentially very, very steep. If you could, just for the purposes of those in attendance, could you maybe summarize those?
Sure, I mean, the fines provided for are in your zoning resolution. I don't know, Eddie, what is it per day?
I believe it's up to $500 per
So,
day.
I mean, that it's starting from the date of the violation, it's $500 a day for every day your property is in violation. So it's a compounding penalty, and it's, you know, the court has the option to award the full value of that or any kind of range the court feels is fair and just. So, I mean, that could be millions of dollars. It could be, you know, what the court, if the court wants to order $500, it's going to be kind of up to how the case falls.
Can we back up a little bit as to what kind of structure this is, where it's located, and how we became aware of the fact that it was built without a permit?
It appears to be a residential structure. We're not entirely sure. And the police department discovered the structure while visiting the site for another matter.
Where's the building department, if we know, on this, Eddie?
So we advised the building department when we learned of this particular structure having been constructed. They sent someone out toward the end of October, early November, and investigated, determined that there was no permit and a permit would be required. I followed up with the building department about a week and a half ago, requesting more information as far as what their next enforcement action would be. And they said before the end of the year, they would send out their second letter.
I will say the kind of action that we're talking about here are typically handled by the building department. Now, we would be doing it under our own zoning resolution because the building department is moving slowly on this, but this is typically something the prosecutor's office would handle.
And since it is moving rather slowly and the residents have dealt with this and other multiple issues with this particular individual, then I would be supportive of a more assertive approach to include the townships acting independently, perhaps in conjunction with, if necessary, collaboration with the prosecutor. But a more aggressive approach, I think, at this point is indicated in part, as we've discussed, because we're setting precedent. By pursuing this aggressively and assertively, lawfully, we're sending a message to this individual and to those, you know, who might otherwise consider this kind of unlawful behavior, this is criminal behavior, that they will not do so in Pierce Township. And by the way, here's the penalties. And secondarily, we are going to not just slap you on the wrist. We will pursue this to the fullest extent of the law. And it would be my position, and we can at some point, and I can propose a resolution to that effect if the trustees are supportive.
So here's my take on it, more or less. It never starts.
It doesn't go to positive places.
I
from
just
there.
want to make sure that we're applying things in the fairest and most uniform way possible. I have no dog in this fight in any way, shape, or form, but the zoning violation should be considered on its own. separate from the other behavior, in my opinion. I mean, you can't take unsavory behavior that's not in violation of a law. It's not in violation of a police or any kind of county or state or federal law. And you can't pile on and say, I don't like your zone, I'm going to come after you for the zoning thing because I have this other stuff. This other stuff could have merit if it did, it could be prosecuted on its own as a certain offense. But I'm a little apprehensive to kind of pile on from that perspective. I don't want to pile on and from the perspective that, well, because that could be subjective. That could be anything. That could be, I don't like, and I'm not saying that it doesn't have merit. I'm only saying that that's a slippery slope to kind of go down, and if this is consistent with what we would typically apply from our zoning code perspective, if this is consistent with how we would typically, if we're out, and we see something like this, and this is how we would typically deal with it, then I'm comfortable with that. But if it's not, I have a few more questions. I need to be reassured that I'm not, just kind of pitchforking and torching based on other things that aren't related to the zoning thing. I just think I have that obligation, and I just would open it up for discussion from that perspective. I'm not necessarily I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but.
Let me say, since it's more or less in response to what I said, I agree with you, and we're not piling on. We're not. I'm not suggesting that any resolution or motion that I would propose would be a piling on situation. And as it regards the typicality of it, the typicality is established today. So the typicality in the past has perhaps been we let these things go, or we're soft on these things, or we whatever. So the typicality, I think we have to establish a precedent going forward today. And really, the way I look at this is an opportunity for that. And so, maybe the precedent has not been set in the past that was aggressive. But in my viewpoint, this is a learning opportunity, has been a learning opportunity for me. I think it's brought something to the surface that, perhaps has not been and not happened in the past necessarily to this extent, but this is a golden opportunity for us to establish that typicality. So that typicality going forward from today, assuming that we're supportive of a resolution of this nature, will be such that, you can't behave this way, meaning specifically construct structures on your property without following the Pierce Township zoning code. So not piling on, not throwing pitchforks, not pointing this guy out, for the good citizen that he is, specifically adhering to the letter of the Pierce Township zoning code as it exists and establishing precedent going forward.
So now the old guy gets to talk. So it's been my experience. Well, I've been through these a couple of times. That's why I say this. It's been iterative, though, Nick. We've had not being a home rule township gives us some limitations that we've had to create, as the chief called it. We've had to Frankenstein some things legally in order to get where we wanted to go in a timely and aggressive fashion. So the typicality has been that we started off, because when I first got here in 2015, we started off, there was a building that was collapsing down on 52. We started off by doing a nuisance ordinance, which had rarely been done in this township. So we took that first step toward an aggressive approach. And then we had the issue on the green, where we didn't really have a lot of tools that we could work with, but we tried to cobble together the kind of aggressive approach that, quite frankly, we've seen as a success on the green. And so then we moved to the situation at Legendary Run, where once again, we didn't have the exact tools, but we cobbled them together. And since we'd had the experience with on the green, we decided we're not going to sit back and wait and let them have 3 or 4 bites at this apple. We were aggressive and we went straight to nuisance. We've now got it in, moving toward a court case. So I don't see this as necessarily piling on or trying to go after a person for doing something else. It's not even in my mind. about the other part. You guys, it's obviously front of your mind. It's part of what the situation is. And same with you, Pete, because you live 2 doors down. But I don't even see that as a motivation on this. I think the motivation is that you've got a person who pretty much ignored the law and has done something that it needs to be reacted to in a way that points out that you just can't do that. You can't act in a certain way with our zoning code as it is and expect that you're going to get away with that over and over and over again. And perhaps broken windows and all, we can, if we do this one step, maybe it strikes a chord and he realizes that we're just not screwing around here. We mean business. If there's a rule, you don't cross it. You do what you're supposed to do. So I don't see these as 2 different issues. I think this is the growth and the evolution of how we've been able to put our code together and enforce it in a way that makes sense. I mean, you heard it tonight. We have to wait for the building department to take action. That has been something we've had to deal with as long as I've been here. The building department, the health department, and then they don't act. And so we've had to find ways to do these things on our own, which thankfully, Nick, with your quick thinking, you managed to bring in the prosecutor for on the green. But those were things that we've just had to over time in a very deliberate fashion. And I see this as the same thing. This is just the growth of that do it ourselves attitude. So
The message that we're sending, is there's a law, there are laws that exist on the books of Pierce Township, not for show. They're laws that were designed and put in place to be enforced, not just willy-nilly and for the heck of it. So this particular situation is quite brazen, in my opinion. It's not putting up a shed, it's putting up a rather large, seemingly residential structure. So this is not, a minor, infraction. This is a pretty brazen, offense, that clearly violates an established law that's on the books of this township. So once again, not to beat this into the ground, but we have a law on the books. I think we should enforce it. I think we should enforce all the laws on our books. This is a golden opportunity. It's been a learning opportunity. This is, how we grow as a township, as Mr. Freeman suggested, that we're, essentially sending the message that we're a law and order community. Follow the laws or, there will be consequences, lawful consequences.
All right. Now, I'm more or less, I'm fine with this, but here's the deal. I want it to be completely separate from any of their behavior going on. I mean, we're voting on something that's a zoning issue. We're not voting on all the other stuff that's been going on over on that site. And I understand the spirit of what you're saying, but that is just, I have no other reason but to feel like I'm being prudent and responsible in my actions as a trustee.
no, I totally agree with you.
Dealing with the zoning issue here, and we're dealing with the zoning issue here. Is that correct?
I totally agree with you on that front. This is the rule that we're focused on and taking care of that one thing. But I do recall back to, I think, testimony you might have given earlier in our discussions. Where was the sewage going from this building? No one knows, because there were no permits issued. There was no permit to live in the site, right? So we don't know where the sewage was going. If you'd had to show up with a fire truck to that building, you had no idea whether anything about it, because there was no permit to move in. So there were so many different layers here that made this unsafe, both from an environmental standpoint and just from a people standpoint, that to me, the other issues are aside, but this issue is critical.
And we are setting, again, to be sure, trying to be prudent here.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to push back on any of this from the perspective of, I mean, friends with somebody, let me let this guy off the hook or something. I do not care. But this is a precedent that we do set moving forward. So if we have similar violations within the township, we're going to approach them in a similar way.
Oh, certainly.
So,
I would argue that we have. That if you look at each one of those individual cases that I pointed out to you, within the confines of what we're able to do on each one of those.
I don't think so.
That
I
was
think
the
this is
approach that we were
specific.
following.
I think there's a specific zoning issue. I don't think. I think that next time there's a structure built, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying, but I think from a zoning perspective, the next time somebody builds a structure that they didn't put a permit in for, regardless, we deal with it in the same way. We don't.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think that's the
As we
precedent we
should,
want to establish.
as I would expect that we would.
Otherwise, what does the zoning code really mean? I mean, really, right? Why do we have it on the book?
I agree.
So, yes, we are, I'm suggesting we set that precedent as we did, with other relatively similar cases. And the truth of the matter is, I think that our law-abiding, emphasis on law-abiding residents do not want us to be anemic on these topics, including legendary, including Pond Run, including elsewhere. So the lawbreakers would like for us to be anemic and to be, to take a more passive approach. Well, we represent them too. However, the majority of our citizens, I think, would want us to take this aggressive stance in this case and in others similar or somewhat similar in the future.
Do you remember when we shut down two buildings on the green because the wall was falling in?
But they didn't build anything. I'm just saying it's
But it was a safety issue.
it's somewhat of a zoning thing, and I get it.
It's a
And the
zoning
county
issue.
does fail to act, but we're continuing to set different precedents now with
I don't think we are.
building structures.
I don't think we are. I think these are different sections, I would argue, of the zoning code. One is a building portion. The others were nuisance and health parts of the zoning code, but they are different sections of the same, and you treat each section of the zoning code in a different way. And so if you've got one thing, it's very much like the criminal code. If I went into Walmart and I stole a pack of gum, you might treat me differently than if I walked into a bank and stole $1 million, right? I'd be treated a little bit differently, but it's still the same code. I broke the law, whether I stole a pack of gum or whether I stole $1 million, right?
Correct.
But it's a different part of that code. And so
I
what I'm
understand that,
saying
but if I let everybody who steals a pack of gum go for 2 years, and then I prosecute you because you stole a pack of gum, and I've prosecuted every bank robber
But has
from
anybody
here
brought,
until, I'm just saying, you
but
do
has
set
anybody
precedents.
brought
from
to
each
me,
one.
but has anybody brought to me a house that's been built without a permit?
That's what I'm saying.
If someone brings it to me, then I'm going to treat it the exact same way.
We embark on that territory this evening.
Exactly.
What I'm
And
saying.
so I like having that tool in my tool shed to be able to say, don't do that here, don't do it over on Pond Run, don't do it in Legendary. don't do
I'm
it
fine
here.
with it. I just want to be prudent and make sure we have this discussion.
Right.
It's always fun.
Well, we do need to actually, we like to argue. I don't know if you've noticed that.
We're
argue-
actually all saying the same thing here.
We'll argue later too.
I think we all are in general agreement. So I agree with you. You brought up a good point.
The only,
The transparency that I agree with that.
Yeah.
But circling back to, we established the new precedent going forward today. If it's the will of this board to be aggressive, not that we haven't been, maybe in the past, I haven't been here long enough to know that. But the precedent starts now.
Well, that's fine. And I think aggressive is kind of subjective term. We're just choosing to enforce the zoning code that we have in a very,
Halcor, I forgot Halcor. That was another one.
So Katie, do you see no issue with this? Gotcha. All right.
The question that is still on the table, though we've argued with one another for 20 minutes now, is if we want to move forward with a criminal or a civil approach. And that's the question on the table right now, as I see it.
And if my understanding is correct, it's your recommendation that we proceed along the criminal pathway.
I'm not making a recommendation.
Okay.
That is up to your pleasure. I'm saying you can proceed both avenues and how you would like to do that.
There's a whole class in law school that teaches you how to not tell your client
And
the direction that
I'm gonna be
you.
careful not to give you legal advice in a public meeting, so
Correct.
that's another something to be considered. But
I mean, if you guys.
I did hear you state that you said something about not being, the county would typically handle the initial.
the county does, as Eddie was saying, the county is doing the enforcement of this, which is, part of their job. We're also entitled to do it because it's a violation of our zoning resolution.
Okay.
So this is in conjunction with or parallel to that action.
My
And we're
suspicion
entitled
is-
to engage in it.
My suspicion is this, if we take the action, which I'm inclined to do, the county will back off and let us carry the water. That would be, that's I would lay money on that. We can call FanDuel or we can call any one of the gaming programs.
FanDuel.
And we can, put a bet on that, but the over under is the county will back away and let us carry the water. Just know that.
So there's gonna be some township cost involved in this, attorneys wise.
But there would also be recovery too, assuming that, we are found to be in the right, which we probably will be.
The one option you mentioned is like, under our zoning code without criminal is like a $500 fine a day or something.
That's for both. That's your criminal, that's your penalties for violations of your zoning resolution. That's authorized,
And those penalties will be payable to the township.
yes.
Okay.
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound, I would say we just do it all the way. If we're gonna do it, just do it all the way, just do the criminal. But I do think that we do set a precedent if we get other, residents in violation of building structures that they don't have permits for, that it's gonna have to be dealt with in a similar way. So just,
If we've written it into our code, the anticipation was that we were going to anyway. Right? If it's written in our code, the precedent was set when they passed the code.
So this will send the message loud and clear that. So this
There is no
sends,
decision to be made.
this sends a pretty strong message,
talking about it.
that we are going to enforce the law as it's written. Simple as that.
I so
Well,
moved.
we're not creating a new law. We're enforcing the laws on the books.
Exactly. It's already in our zoning code, right? It's already in our zoning code, right?
It is.
Then we're not writing new law. We're just enforcing the law as it is.
Okay, so
It's just, this one's really big because it's not a tool shed. It's not, it's not some backyard, garden shop. It's actually a house. So it's a bit different, bigger
So in
magnitude.
in just to make sure that we're compliant and consistent. I'm prepared to make the motion. Would you advise me on how to craft that motion?
I would, yeah, you want me to write that down for you.
hopefully your handwriting's better than Alan's.
She's a lawyer. It can't be that good. She's a lawyer.
It's better than Pete's.
Oh,
Not
heck.
even smile. She's just go focus.
But I could read it.
See, I used to make fun of Tom and he would shoot me dirty looks while he was writing. I think the motion's gonna come out. I so move Alan's an idiot. She smiled at that one.
That should be enough.
What does that say?
I-
Again.
There's a joke here. A lawyer, a doctor asking a lawyer what she wrote. You can't make it up. It's great.
I move to criminally enforce the zoning resolution as against 2825 Pond Run Road.
I have a motion, I have a second,
Second.
roll call,
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Dowd.
yes,
I'm gonna pass that.
And Councilman Dowd.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
all right,
Thank you.
so administration, Tim.
Oh, yeah, I'll be brief on this. Basically, in your packet, there is a brief memo regarding potential moratoriums for uses that the community would appear to want to de-emphasize in the community, storage and those sorts of things. So for your next meeting, I was going to prepare a little more information regarding this topic and kind of what your options are in pursuing these until such time that we can come up with a regulatory framework that really fits the vision of the community.
Sounds great.
Okay.
You don't need a motion on that, do you? Administrator Williams.
I just had a brief update. I think I'd sent out previously to the board an email and maybe mentioned to you individually. Back a couple, I guess in September, Assistant Chief Watkins was doing some inspections on our properties, including those that we had inherited in conjunction with Batavia Township from the former village of Amelia. One of the houses, which is connected in the same parcel with the old police station, is a house. It's 1,160 square foot house. It's 45 Maple Street. And I think I've sent you some pictures on it. It has multiple roof penetrations in it, and water's coming in. Insulation has fallen down. The plaster in the ceilings is starting to come down. The house is in pretty poor shape. I think that Assistant Chief Watkins basically said it was in a significant state of disrepair. So I went over there with Mr. Kohler last week, I guess, to really go through the house. And it's in pretty bad shape. And I think that it's potentially a risk hazard for us at this point. So we've done a couple of things. One, we ensured that the power lines were cut to the house, so they're no longer running to it, even though the meter was shut off. The gas line, I think we have 30 days. The Duke has up to 30 days to cut that off. But we're going to get that cut off as well. Same thing with water. So all that would be completely disconnected from the structure. I had a conversation with my counterpart over in Batavia Township regarding that property, since they're 35% owners, to see under the current conditions. And I sent him pictures of it as well, if his board of trustees would be open to paying their share and potentially raising that building. I think that because of the potential hazard of it, and it really is, I think, beyond the cost of repair, it just needs to come down. If they would be interested in doing that and paying the cost. And he did talk to his trustees, and their preliminary answer back was yes. They would like to see what those costs are. And so I've been diligently working on that the last few days. And we just today got a quote to do. In fact, I told the person to go ahead today with the asbestos identification, just to see if we had any. It appears that it's very small. We are testing the plaster and the ceilings. There's no drywall or plaster on the walls. All that's gone. It's just down to studs. And then also there's some old tile, and it looks like a back kitchen addition that was done, which likely has some asbestos in the tile, just based on the age of it and so forth. So he's going to come back with that those results. Then we can go out and get a price from an asbestos abatement company. He felt like those small in areas we have to work with, that it should be less than $1,000. I've also contacted Rumpke to get a cost on dumpsters for the debris. And then that probably will run somewhere in the range of about $500 per dumpster. And Mr. Kohler believes we need about 4 or 5 dumpsters potentially for the debris. The last piece of the puzzle would be Mr. Kohler feels like that with his equipment and his manpower, and particularly this time of year where they can't do much work out on the streets, that it's something we could probably do internal forces on to get knocked down and put in there. So we feel like that we can do this at a pretty reasonable cost and get it down. And I know, again, my counterpart in Batavia was happy with the 35% of a smaller cost versus hiring a demo company to come in and have to pay for it. But I think ultimately they understand the hazards with the house at this point. And so that's where we're at on it at this point. If the trustees would like to go in a different direction, certainly we can, but we've been moving towards at this point, just demolishing the building. Quite frankly, I think that the property, if the townships were to sell it at some point, would probably be more valuable without the house on it right now versus the house on it. And I don't know if Chief Watkins, if you want to say anything further about the house or not at this point, but I think you're pretty clear in your report as the condition of it.
It's not safe property if you make an entry into the property. Right now it stays secure, typical locks and stuff of that nature, but it's in such a sad disrepair. If it's our place and you want to keep it, that's the money, fix it. I think a better solution myself, I think Mr. White said probably was more marketed than they get land, but it's an unsafe property that we're currently supposed to go and inspect and do everything that we do with all of our other properties. But, then we really need to make a decision on how I want to dispose of it.
It's probably a breeding ground for rodents, raccoons and so forth, which of course can.
Yeah, there's
pose a
holes
health
in
threat,
the floorboard, down to the crawl space, again, multiple
Bats.
penetrations in the ceiling. And when I walked in today, there was just water pouring in from the rain. So yeah, it really does need to come down.
If they, since Batavia expressed a preliminary wish to, cooperate with us on this, would they be responsible for our 35% of our internal costs as well, or just the dumpster rental fees and so on and so forth? I was assuming it would be all of it.
That was what we discussed, is that, we would hope to be able to recover those internal costs, but they should be fairly insignificant. It's really,
Okay.
Diesel fuel and, it's manpower. It'd be hard for us to charge them, I think, for manpower, because again, that's something that's this time of year, I'm not sure we're really pulling away from any other really major projects to be able to do it. And according to Mr. Kohler, I think that they were ready, willing, and excited about the possibility of taking on that project.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. So do we need to vote on this?
If you feel comfortable with it, otherwise I can just leave it as a report, and you don't want to change direction at this point. You guys are okay with it, and we'll proceed forward with it. Again, the cost at some point will exceed the $2,500. So in the January meeting, because we're not going to do it between now and January, I would probably have a motion for you to approve costs for Rumpke and a few other things, so that we could take care of it since it exceeds 2,500.
Sounds good to me.
I'm supportive.
Have anything else?
And I don't know if this is appropriate time or not, but I know Ms. Schway would like to get a date for her cleanup meeting potentially between Christmas and New Year's, and might be a good time to set that now, and the time and the date for that, for some things she does every year.
All right, Debbie, what do you want?
Wednesday, the 28th at 10 a.m.
Okay with me.
There's no, I don't think I've got a problem.
I thought we could get that in the morning and be done.
I'm good.
Mhm.
10 a.m. on the 28th.
Do we need to vote on that, or just no?
And did we have another meeting that you wanted to try to hash out that you?
Yeah, if possible, because we've got a lot of different parties involved. We were trying to reschedule our personnel manual work session so we could get through the rest of those items that were presented by our employee committee. And I've made a couple of stabs at it at this point, and I had communicated with our chairman the other day and said, do you want me to send out a third email, or should we just try to work it out tonight and see if we can come up with something in January for that meeting time?
Good work on it. How,
What were the dates that you put out there?
After New Year's, right?
Yeah, I don't have my cell phone here, so therefore my calendar is with it.
The initial dates were Thursday, January 5th, Monday, January 9th, Tuesday, January 10th, and Thursday, January 12th, all of those being at 5:30 p.m.
Let's shoot for the 5th.
I think those, I don't
I'm good.
recall what I mentioned, but I think they were all okay with me, weren't they? Dan?
They were, yes.
Yeah, any of those are fine with me.
I'm good with the 5th.
I'm sorry.
I'm good with the 5th.
Was
that
January 5th?
Is that what you said?
Okay.
You said the 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What time?
5:30.
5:30. Okay.
All right. And then we're going to want the staff at this meeting.
Yes.
And so hopefully everybody can make it. If
I
you
think
can't-
all but Chief Brockster can make the 5th, but he said he would send somebody in his stead from the
Okay,
department.
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
All right, good. It's settled.
There we go. Thank you.
It's much less painful than a lot of emails and.
Since it's
All right.
Christmas, this is sort of an administrative issue, but just briefly, we had talked about doing a Christmas party. We didn't quite get it together for this year, but we talked about maybe doing it for the future years. So, I mean, it's a little bit early to start planning, but I just wanted to mention that if this is something that would be appropriate to include as a part of that, not only the staff that work here, but also the volunteers that volunteer with the Parks Committee, because they do a lot of work on behalf of the township, strictly volunteer, and to recognize them either as a part of that or as something separate, I think would be nice. That's all I was going to say. Just throw it out there for consideration.
I thought we were moving on an employee launch here at some point. I didn't know if it was specific to Christmas, but I do think it's important to socially get everybody together and have something outside the township.
Right.
Where they're not responsible for getting things together and clean up and all that. Like we used to do it up at Still Meadow Country Club. Have we, I mean, and I know you've had a lot on your plate, Tim, but have you done anything with that? Just curious, like honest question.
Well, I think we felt like that when we talked about it a couple of months ago and our goal setting that the time was compacted between now and Christmas and it might be difficult to pull that
That's
together. But I think the question was, do you want to do a luncheon or would we want to do an employee picnic where everybody can bring their families and their kids and really make it kind of a family oriented event, or do you want to do both? I think both of those, but we never really nailed it down as exactly what you had in mind. If we had a picnic, then I would certainly want to have an employee committee and volunteers that could help to work on that. And I've done that in the past. And usually if the employees come, it's really a nice event, particularly with the kids, because you make it really kin oriented with lots of games and things like that. But certainly it's easier, I think, on staff, certainly if we were just to have it hosted by Still Meadow or somewhere where they could take care of the food and so forth for us and we just show up. So, certainly either way, we're happy to work with or even both if you wanted.
So for the sake of brevity this year and being that you have a lot going on and everything else, can we, I would personally, move toward possibly not doing the, picnic thing and doing something simpler where we could, not have a committee for it and just get with Still Meadow, which I thought somebody already did. And just see if we can set something up for the spring, possibly.
Sure. I spoke with representatives from Still Meadow and they are more than happy to host us. We just have to come up with a date.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to hammer out a date with Still Meadow Country Club to have an employee luncheon sometime before
March.
March 15th.
Seconded.
Seconded. Okay, yes. He's already seconded.
Yeah, is that okay? Does that sound all right?
We've traditionally done that lunch, January timeframe in the past.
We did it January, wasn't it? Trying to push it back to like February, March, but one year we did it, in January, the service guys were on Powell Roads.
Yeah, right.
And we can do it anytime before then, but that kind of puts a backstop on it.
So
I think it's
yeah.
important that we put this together.
And we can see what dates they're available and when we can do it.
Yeah, and next year, if we want to change it up and do something different, we can, but that puts something to get everybody together. And all right, so I have a motion. I have a second.
Yes.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Kelly
Yes.
and Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
All right. Administrator Williams, do you have anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
All right, so new business. Debbie,
I request a motion for approval of the payroll for the month of September.
Row.
That should be for November. For the amount of $503,545.15.
So moved.
Seconded with the amendment.
roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes.
Debbie,
I request a motion for approval to pay the bills for the month of November. In the amount of $358,295.05.
So moved, including the amendment.
Second.
roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes, Debbie.
I request a motion to authorize payment of the solid waste bill from the general fund. Beginning immediately and approving supplemental increase to the general fund of $276,000. Utilizing the remains of funds from the former village of Area. This special will allow the township to cover the access cost of solid waste services as a result of the village's original town revenues from the area receipt.
So just so everybody understands what that's all about, when you pass a new levy or any levy, we receive our revenue twice a year from those levies, once in March-ish, right? And the other one is what, August, September sometime. When you get to the end of the year, you're usually at the end of a cycle, like we are with the waste levy, awaiting the new cycle to kick in. Until that happens, you've got a gap in funding. So we usually move things from the general fund in order to cover that gap until that revenue kicks in from the levy. Once the revenue kicks in from the levy, the next 5 years, you're covered, but you just have that gap going from one year to the next. So that's what we're covering. That way everything moves smoothly and nobody's garbage gets left behind, in theory. And she can pay the bill.
And Debbie, our monthly is now 90, what thousand? 90, okay.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion,
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Debbie.
I request a motion to pay the Ohio Public Works Commission for the November loan payment in the amount of $5,381.27 and an additional, I'm changing that to $10,000 towards the principal. And this is a loan that's got 0%. So everything you can do
You got to pay it. Do I have a motion with the amendment?
One quick, just so everybody understands, this revenue will be coming out of the Prestwick TIF. So it's not coming out of general fund, it's coming out of Prestwick TIF. The only reason that we're not putting more money in the 50,000 is we just want to make sure we know what the revenue stream is coming off of Bradbury moving forward. And we'll get a second payment on this loan toward the end of the year, in which case we'll probably up that payment. But for this first one, until we get a sense of what the revenue stream is off Prestwick, we just thought that conservative is better at the moment.
And for clarification, Debbie, what's our balance on that?
I only made one payment.
Never was, what do we owe?
What do we owe in totality currently?
It's a zero interest loan and we're
Yes.
paying it out of Prestwick TIF money as it becomes available.
Mhm.
So it's a great deal.
That's okay. I can.
I thought it was like
Offline.
240 or something like that, I want to say. 300,000 total.
It's from that.
Okay.
So you basically, again, as trustee Kelly pointed out, it's let's arguably say that it's a $240,000 loan. We've made one payment of $5,381. So subtract that. But the good thing is it's coming out of Prestwick TIF. So that's covering that, but you get a zero interest loan for 25 years. So that's a pretty
deal.
pretty good way to go. Did you?
So I have a motion,
Yes,
Second.
second, roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
I have one more thing.
Oh, of course. As tradition.
See the statement from the managers in regards to Grove Park and Level Square Park. The park for Grove Park is $90,538.80. That will be coming out of the ARP funding that we received for those. And then for Locust Corner Park, $33,758.25, and that will be coming out of the rest. I paid the motion to pay $124,297.05.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion and second, roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Just to let you know, the total bid package on that was $644,639.
Thank you, Debbie.
The majority of that is coming out of the ARP.
Great.
That's all.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Positive. Tim.
All right, Taunter, she'll come back.
Have a couple here. First, Administrator Tim Williams requests a motion to adopt resolution number 2022-052, authorizing the fiscal officer to sign and submit a renewal application to the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio for approval to continue operation of electric and natural gas aggregation services in the township for 2023 and 2024. We got notice that the aggregation program that the public voted on a few years back, that the 2-year renewal cycle is ending at the end of 2022. So we would need to get a authorization to submit that renewal application for another 2 years of the operation. Simple as that.
And to be sure, this really doesn't affect much. It's a requirement. You have to do it every 2 years, but we've already established rates. We've already kind of locked those in, right? So there's nothing will really be affected.
Not at this time. The gas aggregation, the company we're working with is trying to get some new bids on that. As you know, over this last year, natural gas has fluctuated wildly. And so they're still trying to get into the sweet spot where they can guarantee that we're going to be able to save some money for our residents. But the electric rate is locked in, and it has, I think I noted in my memo here, it's been a nice savings to the residents and the small commercial businesses.
And to be, I guess, open about it, people can opt out, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
If you want a worse rate, you're more than welcome to go find one.
Right.
Go elsewhere.
You can make that choice.
And there's information on our website, including, I believe, a link if you want to opt out of that. So at any time.
All right. Have a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Mr. Williams.
Administrator Tim Williams requests a motion approving the meeting calendar for 2023 for the Board of Trustees, Zoning Commission, and Parks and Green Space Committee meetings, and authorizing publication of said calendar. The calendar does have a couple amendments to it. One, Mr. McCarthy was working with his zoning commission, and they wanted to move the time of their meetings from 6:30 to 6. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then I think there was one date for the planning commission in November they needed to move, and that was, what was the dates on that?
The November 7th.
All right.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Mr. Williams.
And last one from me, Administrator Tim Williams requests the motion to adopt resolution number 2022-053, approving an extension to the contract with Rumpke Incorporated for the curbside collection of solid waste and recycling materials for either a 5-year period ending May 30th, 2027, or extending the current contract on a month-to-month basis at a rate provided by Rumpke for 2023. As you may recall, the existing contract we have with Rumpke ended in May of 2022. And the prior administrator, and I think Ms. Schway, were able to work with Rumpke to get a renewal rate on a month-to-month basis through the end of the year. So currently we're on a month-to-month with Rumpke with our contract. Going forward is a basis for determining what the levy would be, the solid waste levy. Rumpke had provided cost for solid waste and recycling for the years 2023 through 2027 for a 5-year period. The contract that was initially bid and signed in 2012 had in it a 5-year period for the first contract. It had another 5-year renewal, and then it had an additional 5-year renewal on top of that. So if you were to choose to take that option for the final 5-year renewal, that would run us through May of 2027 at this point. I'm not sure how the rates were that we got the rates from Rumpke because I wasn't here at the time. That were proposed for 2023. And then for the remaining years, if we were to extend for a 5-year contract, I did have on page 26 of your packet some information related to the rates that they're proposing. That's the top listed there for Rumpke. And then some other communities that over the last, say, 15 months have bid their solid waste services that was supplied to us by the Center of Local Government. So you can see in the comparison that what Rumpke has provided for that 5-year renewal at least for the first few years, is pretty much in keeping with what others are paying. That included, I think, Mason and Madeira and a couple of townships as well, I think are in there. And also the Center for Local Government has a consortium. It's called SWORE, SWOORE. And it's various townships and villages, a couple of cities that have all banded together to bid the solid waste services as a block. And those rates are also included on there as well. The first year of the renewed contract, if you chose to go for another 5 years, is a 10% increase. And then the following 4 years are 4% increases. But again, if you compare those rates with what others that have bid recently, they're pretty close. And in some cases, the Rumpke rate proposed to us is less.
So I would honestly like to throw this out the bid, I think. I just think it's too much to not force them to be as competitive as possible for the residents.
I could kind of see it both ways. I thought about this back and forth ever since, I got your memo. And, I think in looking at what other communities are paying, it doesn't seem like if we did renew that we would be way far off base, comparatively speaking. And I do agree. I mean, I think in our discussions, the totality of the increase over 5 years was what, 28, was it 28%?
Yeah.
So significant, but nevertheless, so taking that into account, considering the fact that still, despite that, we would still be within, some of these other community averages. I don't disagree that it would be reasonable and appropriate to put it out to bid. I don't know how many takers we would have. There might be one, maybe two, but I could see it either way. I'm not opposed to bidding it out. This is a tough one, really, to be honest with you. I see the benefit. We have a history. We know their service pattern. I guess the potential drawback is if we were to bid it out, maybe get a more competitive bid, would we necessarily know the history with confidence, or at least have some, understanding of what kind of service we would receive with a new entity? So there is that drawback potentially. So in exchange for this higher rate, which of course, which once again is fairly comparable, we're buying an understanding of a level of service and a relationship, I guess, that we can kind of count on. Whereas if we do go with another entity, then there will be that uncertainty, perhaps creating a little bit more work. Again, playing both sides of this, that may create a little bit more work in the office for Laura and or others in the event that we do have, poor service.
Yeah, to be sure, I'm not in favor of switching providers. I'm in favor of getting more information and getting a few more bids. And I think Rumpke has done a pretty good job overall. Their rate may be very competitive. I just think there's too much money on the line as far as, our responsibility to make sure that we say, okay, we've put this out, it's competitive, and we've gotten the best value that we can for residents. And I say value because it's not just going to be the cheapest price. We have to take the service, as you mentioned, into consideration.
Right.
I agree with that 100%. But I just think we should get a couple of prices and just ensure that what we're getting is our best value.
If we did that, what would be the process or what would be, do you think, Rumpke's receptiveness to extending our contract for a period of time or renewing this month-to-month contract while we do this?
They certainly were willing to work with us for the month-to-month after May of 2022 through the end of the year. Certainly you would be hopeful, since we have a long-standing relationship with them, that they would understand that after this many years that the board felt as though that a bidding process would be appropriate. So certainly we would be I would be cautiously optimistic that they would be willing to extend that for, a short period of time. I don't know if they would want it to go on for a long period of time, but do note in there that starting in January, if we do it on a month basis, it would have to be at the rate, the monthly rate, the new rate that they have proposed to us, not the 2022 rate. I don't think they would agree to that at this point.
And what kind of time frame would we be looking at in terms of a bidding process?
Probably 60 days, I would guess, to put the bid specifications together, and advertise it, give time for the companies to assess that and ask questions, and then come back for a bid opening, and then back to you. It'd probably be tough to get that. We might be able to get it done by the February meeting, but it more likely to be a special meeting sometime later in February. Just based on my experience in other times of bidding, garbage services.
Okay. Well, I would support, and I can make a motion to this effect, that we put this contract out to bid.
I'd second it.
Motion and a second, roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Yes. Anything else, Mr. Wood?
So, you should move the way the resolution is written, it authorizes Mr. Williams to extend the contract with Rumpke as necessary. I think you should approve that so that we can go forward, extending it month to month while.
So maybe two resolutions?
Yeah, do it.
So the one that we just made, to be sure, was for putting this out to bid.
Right.
And a second motion to continue on month to month with the contract.
Right, you should, the motion he made, which was, they request to adopt resolution 2022-053. You should approve that resolution, that he can extend the contract month to month throughout the bidding.
Okay,
I see
so
what you're saying.
you would make that in relation to the latter portion, which is extending the contract on a month-to-month
Correct.
basis.
Mhm.
Okay, so do I have a motion to that regard?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes.
We have two motions.
Yep. All right, Mr. Williams, are you good?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chief Broxman.
I request a motion to pay the final invoice of 424780 Moore's Property Restoration for the completion of the Police Department's investigative building. On October 27, 2022, the building received a certificate of completion from Claremont County Permit Central.
I'm glad you added that last part, so we don't have to come after you.
That's correct.
So moved.
Second it.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And
Yes.
Paul and I have been out and celebrated on that. Yeah, the box.
Chief Broxman.
I request a motion to purchase a FLIR breach PTQ 136 multifunctional thermal imaging monocular from Teledyne FLIR for $28.99. The purchase is being funded by the Amelia American Legion Bicentennial Unit 773's monetary donation to the police department.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes, Chief Broxman.
I request a motion to pay the invoice of $2,700 to Gray's Towing. The expenses related to the transport of a Conex container from 1528 State Route 749 to 950 Locust Corner Road. The container is evidence from a homicide on November 28, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes. Chief Broxman.
And finally, I request a motion to purchase a new 2023 Chev Tahoe from Ganley Chevrolet of Aurora in the amount of $43,645. Back on the April 13th trustee meeting, the trustees granted a motion to purchase a new 2022 Ford Explorer from Lebanon Ford in the amount of $40,587. It was expected that the delivery date would be about 30 weeks out. Since that time, they canceled the order. There's been a shortage of police vehicles throughout the country. We were able to find this find this Tahoe. It's black in color, but we are going to have it wrapped in white after we get the vehicle.
Sounds great.
And that amount, is that within the state contracting guidelines?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I so moved.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Yes. Is that it, Chief Roxman?
Yes.
We can take that back and we can buy the old car that Bachman had for $1 if you want. He told me that. The offer's on the table if you change your mind. All right, Chief Wright.
I request a motion to accept the resignations of part-time members William Hiker III and Jacob Carrier. Excuse me. Carlier.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. Chief Wright.
I request a motion to approve the annual invoice to ESO Solutions Incorporated in the amount of $4,439.20 for the fire department reporting software package.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes. Chief Wright.
I request a motion to approve the purchase of a 2023 Chevy Tahoe SSV from Ganley Chevrolet Reward LLC in the amount of $45,057.
You guys are living dangerously, trying to buy two of them.
Well, so I do want to make a note, special thanks to the police department, and Lieutenant Bennett. So we've been on a list for a Tahoe for almost a year. And Mike found the lead on Ganley, gave me all of the information. I was able to reach out to them and secure one as well. So ours, the cost is a little bit different. We're getting the service vehicle package as opposed to the pursuit vehicle package.
And I don't know if anyone's noticed, but these are Chevrolet Tahoes. I mean, these are state bid pricing. So this is a hell of a deal. I mean, in regards to, I bought a new truck this year for work and it was outrageous and it wasn't nearly as nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think a Tahoe on a lot is probably about mid-60 to 70,000, and the government ones that are built are set up to be outfitted for lights, sirens, radios, consoles. So it's much more expensive install to buy one off the lot and at a much higher price tag.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Service Director Kohler.
I request a motion.
Let me guess. You want a Tahoe as well,
No, I don't want to talk. I
John,
wish that's all I had to buy.
Let's just hop into 17, shall we?
huh?
I request a motion for resolution 2022-054 to approve the agreement for resurfacing township roads with Claremont County engineers for the total of $400,000.
This was a beneficial contract last year, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a no-brainer. I make the motion to approve.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes,
Sorry about that. I was thinking.
it's all right. At least we didn't call misses. John.
I request a motion for a resolution 2022-055 increasing Pierce Township cemetery rates effective January 1, 2023 per the schedule attached and incorporated within this resolution.
Thank you. John, can I ask a question about that? I looked at that and I can't quite put my finger on it in the packet, but I noticed you raised the rates, just proposed raising the rates for non-residents, with which I agree. You know, I thought they were a little conservative as far as for the non-residents, that is. I don't know how important this is to pass tonight, but maybe it's imperative, but I would have favored maybe increasing the non-resident rates substantially more than what you proposed, non-resident.
Okay.
Well, so do we have a resident rate increase as well?
Where is that in our packet, John? Just so I can kind of.
I'm looking for it now. It's back in here somewhere.
Because I think one of the, I wouldn't say problems necessarily, but one of the loopholes is, and we've experienced it, I think more often than not, is that a resident can buy a plot and then transfer it over to a non-resident.
And we have, I think that was just going to be discussed at some point.
Yeah, so one of the things that's in these rates is a doubling of the lot transfer fee to hopefully discourage it a bit. But I know I've talked to Mr. Kelly as well as Dr. Campbellis. We probably, and Ms. Frederick has already started to pull some information for John and I, but I think a little bit more robust report to ensure that our rates aren't subsidizing non-residents, non-taxpayers. So we'd like to try to do that in the next few months, certainly if that's the will of the board, but just so that, you know, we are ensuring, as Dr. Cabela said, that we're not subsidizing non-taxpayers in the community for a service that was conceived for our residents.
Well,
I'll
that-
give it, I'm sorry. go
That
ahead.
kind of brings up the question. Do we want to take this action now if there's going to be a separate potential action in a couple of months?
Yeah, I would potentially want to table this and wait till we have all the information. And I don't know how many graves are going to be requested between now and then, but hopefully it's not a ton. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot.
People are lining up right now to transfer. It's like college
Or buy
football.
property in Pierce
Somebody's
Township.
going to go, I'll have to go out front and tell them that.
It's like college football. It's the transfer portal.
I would ask that we table it as well. And John, if you maybe would at least consider my request.
Sure.
I don't think it's inappropriate because we're here to serve our taxpayers. Not the non-tax paying, you know, individual who's looking to buy a nice piece of cemetery ground in Pierce Township.
I agree.
I also just don't want to look, you know, you don't want to just keep driving up, you know, it's like every 3 months, we're going to change our rates. Let's just do it once and get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. All right. And of course, you don't want a new vehicle or anything, so you're good. John, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Are you sure? You don't want a Dodge Ram that's non-state bid?
Buy me one on state bid and I'll buy it.
No Tahoe for you, huh?
No. I request a motion to purchase a 2022 5500 Ram truck. It's only the cab and chassis in the amount of $75,850 from Mount Orab Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. To use for the park, cemetery and roads. I've been trying to get one all year, but we had it budgeted for a truck this year. The one truck that we are using right now, the motor could blow at any time. We don't really, the wrist pins are loose in it. It's ticking. It's kind of on a wait and see basis on that thing. So
So John, when you mentioned that this cabin chassis only, the chassis, the frame, basically, then you outfit it after that based on your needs.
yes, and I'm waiting on bids from outfitters to do that with. And I'm also considering, well, I've talked to one of my guys used to be a painter, and we have a unique group of guys, but we feel that we might be able to equip this truck ourselves. So I'm trying to weigh out and see if we can do it in-house to save money also on the outfitting. So
So would this be a kind of vehicle that would be used to transport other, so I understand what we're going to do with it?
basically, it's a small dump truck.
Okay.
We'll use it in the cemetery, the parks, to haul debris away, that kind of thing. And then also we'll use it to plow roads with.
Oh, so it'll be out as a snowplow
Yeah.
as well. Okay, I understand.
That's where the roads come into play with it.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. I make the motion.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
And Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. All right, Mr. McCarthy.
Planning and Zoning Administrator Eddie McCarthy requests a motion seeking authorization to sign an agreement with KZF Design not to exceed $5,000 for professional assistance in completing the Pierce Township Land Use Plan.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Eddie.
Planning and Zoning Administrator Eddie McCarthy requests a motion to pass resolution number 2022-056, denying zone map amendment applications VC 2022-004.
So moved.
Was this the 9 Mile Davis? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Second,
Roll call.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
yes.
Yes. All right, any other public comment? Yes, Michelle.
I don't know, 2024 Monday Tucson. You guys are gonna get a car.
You get a car and you get a car.
I just wanted to go over a couple of things. The parade, I think, was successful. Anytime no one's hurt, it's a success in my book. I mean, I had to put notes down because I get frustrated when I'm up here. You guys intimidate.
Oh, really?
Come on.
The Ohio Land Search and Rescue Chief Adams, he has been on my parade route for the past 2 years and has never been able to participate because he's out doing good things. So I think that is a great business. I hate that he's busy. I wish we didn't have to have him. But he's doing the best he can with, the people he has. He has great staff. Secondly, you mentioned Toys for Tots next year. While I was hanging out with Mr. and Mrs. Santa at Kroger's, we spoke with Amy about doing like Toys for Tots the Saturday before the parade and making kind of together like a little group to get Santa there, and then the next day he'll be in the parade. So I just want to put that bug in your ear for next year. I'm all for the trustees being in the parade, however way, shape, and form you want to be in it. You got to be on time. We almost lost Gapper this year.
Well, we're
Last minute.
We're out then.
You-
So
So,
Both sides, right, Michelle? Batavia and Pierce.
absolutely, and I'll go to the
Perhaps as a
next one. Absolutely,
Group, unity.
as a group.
we'll have to see about this one.
So
I'm quite comfortable.
Come on, Come on. man.
tell me you're the one, and I'll put you in the
All
line.
right, I'll think about it.
Thank yous. Thank you to Doug. He helped me out this year with my lineup. Thank you to all the police departments, fire departments, maintenance crews on both sides, Pierce and Batavia. I can't do it without you guys. And let's appreciate everyone for making it a great year. I'm slowly closing parade book in my head, and I'll revisit next August. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very nice.
Thank you. All right, any other public comment? All right, so we're gonna have to hop into executive session, and I'll read that in a second. We do not intend to take any action, and I think Chief Wright, if you could join us, but the rest of everybody else can go home. So I need a motion to adjourn into executive session as permitted by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G1 to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or official, and as permitted by Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G3 to discuss imminent litigation with the Township Law Director. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks, guys. All right, so I would like a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
yes,
Yes. If nothing else, we need a motion to adjourn.
motion,
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. All right, tree lighting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
I'll see you guys in less than 24 hours, unfortunately.
Big